5 mid lane gods. So we're going to be talking here, guys, about the top 5 mid laners that you can be playing in ranked. This is going to be, I'm going to throw some caveats in here as we go through it, and I'll explain to you why these gods are on the list where they are. But basically the gist of this top 5 is we're going to be talking about in high level ranked performance, who are the gods that are consistently performing well. Some of this is based off of statistics, not obviously off of this recent patch because that was like 36 hours ago, and so there haven't been that many games played, but using data that we had from the last patch about gods that were performing well in mid, as well as the gods that you're going to see more often in the mid lane, the gods that are getting picked and banned at higher rates, all based around kind of that high level ranked. This does not mean that these have to be your top 5 mid laners. Chances are you won't be good at some of these mid laners. That's okay. But the top 5 lists are basically about if all your skill level is even on every god. If you were to be evenly good on every single character in Smite, these 5 characters are going to be outperforming other gods in mid, either in the laning phase, in the team fights, and overall win rates. So, getting into number 5, this is going to be probably the spiciest of the top 5 mages, and it did slide into that number 5 slot, and there's a couple of reasons for it, but that number 5 god is going to be Baron Samedi. Baron Samedi is interesting right now in a rank setting because he is not crazy popular, but performance-wise, he is pulling way above his weight in popularity. A part of this, I do believe, is going to come down to Baron's 2, which is one of the better abilities in Smite, and also a really strong heal, even post-healing nerfs, and that is because it also gives you percent missing health. So he's got the flat heal, right? And the flat heal is okay, but that percent missing health becomes a pretty big number later in the game, particularly for your tanks. And not only is it a big heal, it also gives you that bonus movement speed, and it can give you the slow immunity. Slow is the most popular form of crowd control in Smite, which means that Baron, when he actually has the Hysteria on the target, and he gives out that bonus movement speed and the slow, he actually has one of the biggest team-wide CC immunities in the entirety of Smite. Just very underrated. On top of that, his clear is actually pretty good. Vivid Gaze plus his spirits is pretty good clear. He's got good CC, and we all know how important CC is right now. And he actually has the ability to self-peel away from tanks because he does have that root, because he does have a movement speed buff. He has the ability to self-peel, which is very important as a mage because mages do not kill tanks very fast right now. And then, of course, he also provides his Baron to brew to the entire team, which is a very underrated extra little bonus to everybody in the game. Play some Baron if you haven't played him a while in ranked. His win rate was very good during that last little split, and I do believe it just comes down to the fact that his 2 was one of the more underrated abilities in the game. Number 4, chances are you've played against a lot of this one in the mid lane recently, and it's gonna be Poseidon. Poseidon, very high up in the win rate right now for mid lane. Why is he so high up in the win rate? Really comes down to a couple of things. One of those is that Poseidon has one of the best clears in the entirety of Smite. Not only does he have one of the best wave clears in the entirety of Smite, he is also one of a few mid lane gods that is a premium mid harpy clearer. So for those of you that don't play a ton of mid right now, mid has those 2 spawns of 3 harpies on the left and right hand side. A lot of mid laners take a long time in order to clear those. So long that you take half your HP as damage, or you have to back to base after, or you're late to go do a different camp. Poseidon instantly clearing those camps because of Tidal Surge plus Trident plus Whirlpool. Not only that, There's a lot of farm right now in the mid lane because mid lane is doing a lot of those side harpies plus a lot of jungle camps. If your mid laner is off ganking duo, chances are those back right harpies are going to be up, so you're doing them. If your jungler is ganking solo, chances are that back left camp is going to be up, which means you're doing them. And Poseidon's passive movement speed allows him to get over there, clear the camp, and get back to mid lane without missing any XP, which means Poseidon's almost always have an experience / gold lead in the mid lane. Not to mention, Poseidon simply just does a ton of damage in PvP as well. Having a cripple, very strong in Smite right now. And his Kraken, not the highest damaging ultimate in Smite, but one of the highest damaging abilities plus massive CCs. It also has that giant stun in the center, plus it's a slow generically on the outside. Play more Poseidon if you haven't yet. Also, not the hardest mid laner to play. I know we've all whiffed a Kraken a time or two in our day, and you'll whiff a Kraken a time or two again, but I recommend playing some more Poseidon in the mid lane. He's actually one of the easier, if not the easiest of the top 5 mid laners right now. Now, this number 3 slot, I questioned putting at number 1. And the only reason why I'm not going to put them at number 1, well, I should say there's 2 reasons why I'm not going to put this character at number 1 and I'm putting them at number 3 instead. 1, they're basically always banned. And if a character is basically always banned and you can't play them, then who cares how good they are right? But 2, they're also going to be the only physical character on our list for the mid lane. And when you pick a physical character in the mid lane, you can throw off your team comp. So particularly picking a hunter middle in lower level ranks when nobody is going to exchange their picks around it can end up with a 4 physical comp, and then you can kind of goof things. But that's really not your fault if you're like a top pick. It's really up to everybody else below you to make their picks a little bit different, and that's going to be Marty. Like I said, Marty could arguably be the number 1 slot, but he's banned like 80+% of the time. And then, of course, he does have that one caveat. If you have a physical middle, you probably want 1 more magical damage on your team somewhere. Maybe it's a Jorm solo. Maybe it's a Hebo jungle. Maybe it's a Soul ADC. Just something in order to get more magical damage on your team. But Marty loves the mid lane. I'd actually argue that he's a better mid laner than an ADC, even though he's great at both. A part of that reason is the build that Marty wants to run is basically Transcendence, Soul Eater, Heartseeker, Crusher, that old school full power, think Ullr in Chiron builds. That's what Marty loves, and he has dummy thick PvP damage because of Poison Barb, which has that explosion on it. Plus, he comes with the CC with the root. Plus, he gets anti-heal. Plus, he has Stalk Prey, which is actually one of the better abilities for getting away from frontliners. You're getting run out by that tier, by that Wukong. If you have Stalk Prey strategically placed out for yourself for a 35% bonus movement speed, and you can stack that basically 3 times in a row, which is 9 seconds of bonus movement speed, nobody's catching up to you. And if they do, thank God you've got Death from Above, which is, 3 seconds of not being targetable, plus a massive penetration debuff, on top of the fact that he's got built-in dumb sustain and bonus attack speed. One of the most overbloated, overstated characters in Smite right now. End of story. Could have very well been number 1, but if I put him at number 1 and then a bunch of people start picking him and then all of a sudden people are rocking 4 or 5 physical comps and they're like, why isn't he hitting that hard? And then all of a sudden their enemy team all have capped physical protections, and it's like, you got to think of the repercussions of your actions. Number 2, we're going back over to the mages. This is a mage that just recently got buffed. To be fair, their buff was because some numbers needed to get changed around due to the reduction in power and protections in Smite. But this particular mid laner did not actually need a buff, and that is going to be Tiamat. Tiamat has been one of the few mages that I think is doing, if I had to guess, Tiamat is doing much better at high level ranked than lower level ranked. She is genuinely a difficult character in Smite to play. She's got a lot of abilities. There's a lot of knowledge aspects to her. You have to know when you use your jump to go in and get aggressive. But when you get Tia down, when you've played a lot of Smite and you know what to do, really difficult to deal with Tia. One, because she's extremely safe. She's got CC immunity in her ground stance. She's got a leap. She's got a dash. She's got a stun. She's got a knock-up with her tornado. She's got a slow with her Minotaur boy. Fantastic clear with primordial onslaught. There's nothing that Tia does not do well. The only thing that she doesn't do well is probably get played in the hands of newer players, because she is genuinely one of the more difficult gods in the entirety of Smite to play correctly, in my opinion. A lot of people go to the Morrigan, but I actually think that Tia is one of the more difficult gods of Smite to play, because what separates the OP Tiamats from the OK Tiamats is knowing when you can go in, using your leap, and get off a whole nother set of damaging abilities. Once you get that figured out, once you start consistently using that leap aggressively inwards without killing yourself in the process, you're going to find that Tiamat goes from being a very okay mid laner to a very OP mid laner. And finally, our number one. This, for me, was not really in contention for that number one slot. It was between them and Marty, but as we previously mentioned, giving Marty that number one slot has some repercussions to it. And that is going to go ahead and be the Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is one of the few mid laners that gets banned at high level ranked. Most of the bans right now are things like Raven. You're looking towards like assassins and like Thor, and like a lot of assassins getting banned right now with those globals. Almost no mid laners making it on to the bans, except for every once in a while, every game or two, you'll see the Baba Yaga get banned. And there's a couple of reasons for it. The number one reason why Baba is so good is because of her passive. Baba's passive ability to stack items gets her so far ahead so early. As you all know, there's a lot of snowball potential in Smite right now. A lot of games by that 15-minute marker are really in a tough spot, and you have to claw your way back out of it. She allows herself to get ahead in stacks every single game because she creates stacks out of thin air, which means her warlocks getting stacked faster than you. Her Carrots coin getting stacked faster than you. And most importantly, her prophetic cloak. That's right. If you don't know, she gets prophetic cloak in her build, and she builds stacks with it because of her passive, which means that not only does she have an incredible amount of damage because she can stack a potion in her pocket, which means she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damaging abilities. She also is one of the tankiest, if not the tankiest mid laner in the game. Her 3 gives her mitigations while she's using it. She gets prophetic for a huge amount of power. Her 2 has crazy CC effects on it that people forget. Her 1 has crazy CC effects on it. Her ultimate is a knock-up with the giant shield. Once again, CC and playing into that tankiness, which means if you're getting killed by a Baba Yaga and you're like, oh, let's go focus the Baba, chances are you've chosen the wrong target because she's going to be so tanky, so hard to kill. You're going to have to dump everybody's kit into her. And then that means you've got 4 other people beating on you. Baba Yaga, I would say clearly the number one choice of mid laners at that diamond plus level right now because of how safe she is. Her clear is solid. Her PvP is amazing. And her ability to stack puts her ahead every single time, which means you are very literally playing from behind every single time you play against Baba Yaga because she just has more stacks than you do. And that, guys, is our top 5 mid laners currently in the Season of Souls. In the season of soul. That's right. We got content for you guys. Every single day here on the Twitchiest community for you. We got content. We got God guides coming in every day. We won't have like a top 5 video every day, but my goal is to give you a God guide plus some form of bonus content on top of that at the end of every stream. So it might be a God guide plus a top 5 list. It might be a God guide plus some tips and tricks. It might be a God guide plus a learning with Incon series where we play with new players and help them. Just kind of the last hour and a half, hour to 2 hours of stream. I want it to be very focused on helping players, helping you learn, gain some knowledge so you can take it into your games that afternoon, that evening, and utilize all of the stuff that you have learned and hopefully win more games than I did today. You know what I'm saying?